미국에서 15대 안에 든다고 합니다. 그때 알았으면 조금 더 어떻게 재무하게 해야 할까요? 이런.
잠깐. 다시 시작.
오늘
There's definitely correlation between the types and manuscript categories with the various types.
안녕하세요. 에니어그램해라의 헤라입니다. 오늘은 저의 미국 에니어그램 연구소 동기이자 세계적으로 유명한 재무 설계사 릭칼러를 모시고 인터뷰를 기획해 보았는데요. 릭은 저의 점심 메이트이자 산책 메이트였어요. 릭은 자신뿐만 아니라 칼러 파이낸셜 그룹 직원들까지도 다 리소더 쓴 애니어그램 수업을 듣게 하고 재무 컨설팅에 적용하고 있습니다. 릭은 돈에 대한 인간의 심리에 깊은 관심을 가지고 4권의 책을 쓰기도 했습니다. 우리나라에는 머니 스크립트라는 책이 번역되어 소개되어 있습니다. 인간의 비합리적 재무 행동에 대한 치유 분야의 전문가이기도 합니다.
Let's move on to question number 3. I know this can be a silly question, but I think everybody is really curious, and I think people would be really interesting to hear, how can I be wealthy? How can I be rich? And yeah, what is your opinion about being being rich and wealthy? And also, do you believe that every Enneagram type needs a unique and different strategy to become rich?
So I will focus my answer on being rich. In other words, having money.
Having money, right?
You know, we could get into a lot of things as to what does wealthy mean, but let's talk about having money. And given the choice of being in poverty or having money, I would select having money. In the book Wired for Wealth, the 4 categories of money scripts, and one of those categories is people who tend to have money scripts that fall into vigilance, money vigilance. They have a lot of anxiety around money, but they tend to do money well and tend to be more wealth builders. How do you become a wealth builder? I find that there's 6 basic steps. And one is learning to spend money like a wealthy person spends, which means that they have a degree of frugality. The number one thing I find amongst my clients that have money isn't their professions, isn't what they've invested in, isn't how much their salary is, but it's the ability to live on much less than what they make. So, and then when they spend, they get value for what they spend their money on. The second thing is learning to budget like a wealthy person would budget. Budget is a bad name, certainly in the United States. But basically, somebody that builds wealth, they will pay their taxes first. They will set aside money for emergencies. They will pay all of their expenses first. They will set aside what they're saving for retirement. And then they spend whatever is left. So having a budget doesn't mean knowing exactly how much you're going to spend for all these categories. Most of my clients do not have written budgets, but they have this ability to set aside money for all of the important things first. Then they live on what is left. The wealth builders tend to work. They tend to view their career as their number one financial asset. Most of them love what they do. So they really get to play when they're working, and not everybody has that benefit.
So you're saying the career that you're loving is the most important asset for the being wealthy.
The average wealth builder works 70 hours a week. They're more likely to be available to clients or customers. They typically have some skin in the game, meaning they have some ownership in their company or some interest in what they're doing.
Right. But young
and then-
people try not to work overly because they feel like they want to enjoy life rather than working
and
hard.
boy, isn't this so important? Because the younger generation has this wonderful balance, this work-life balance. And what I just described is a workaholic, which is one of the money disorders.
Right.
So, but what we do know is a person that tends to work hard, there tends to be a correlation with earning money and building wealth, right?
Right.
So, but it's important to have balance. So it doesn't mean that a person that can't have balance can't build wealth. You could argue that the person that can learn a good work-life balance might be able to accumulate wealth more sustainably than somebody who's a workaholic that will burn out. What is rich? How much is enough? That means something different to almost every other person as to how much is enough.
To me, it sounds like being rich. Being rich is like finding your essence or finding your, something important. It seems like the same thing, like find what you love.
Well, that gets into further defining what is wealth. What is riches? Well,
Right.
It's almost like I wrote a book called The Financial Wisdom of Ebenezer Scrooge. And I don't know how well known that fable, it comes really out of the United Kingdom, written by Charles Dickens in 1843. But it's about this miserly man, by all accounts was very, very wealthy, but lived very, very poorly because he was frugal to a fault. Well, what's the point if you have riches or wealth or money and it does not support your life, your desires, your heart's, your dreams, essence, or building skills or personal development? I mean, like learning the Enneagram. Well, that takes money to do that. It takes money to go to a retreat. So when I think of wealth, would I rather have inner peace, connectedness, serenity, which is a quality of the one, over having a huge savings account? Yeah, those are really important, very important. But it's also important that I can maintain some level of care, physical care, with the food I eat and where I live and things. It's a pretty nuanced question as to how do you build wealth? Is that interior wealth or exterior wealth?
Sure. So I asked you a silly question, but it seems like you delivered the wisdom because I asked you, who's going to be rich among the Enneagram types? And you said,
of the types, typically you're type 8.
Type 8 can be rich.
Is more of the empire builder.
Wow, yes.
Typically. But I don't think there's any one type that has a lock on building.
But I can see many people, who are 8 will be so happy to